I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman, and we're here for another episode of Narcos Mexico Season 2. Today we're discussing Episode 4, and with me I have...
Liz, or you could call me Elizabeth Pena.
And she is our resident Narcos enthusiast.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I'm sure you fall in love with the show too.
Absolutely,
yes.
Yeah. So it was, by this point, everything is really, we're really in the middle of just everything going on with Felix, and we've got some Breslin drama. We got more of his backstory.
Yes.
Liz, what were your overall thoughts of this episode?
Overall, I really enjoyed seeing the rise of El Chapo. I think that was what was most interesting to me in this episode, just to see how he was like a hitman and he's more of the arms and guns, and now it's like you see him creating a plan that can really help out their Sinaloa cartel. Yeah. So I think that was like my favorite part so far. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I definitely appreciated that. I also liked the moment where Felix got, I don't want to say conned, but a little bit like blindsided when he went in, and all of a sudden he found out that, Guerra was not going to be working with him.
Yeah, that was like a backstab almost.
Yeah, after all of that like whining and dining, and then to do that. But be sure to stay tuned until the end of the episode, because we are going to highlight a real life Narcos. So stay tuned for that, and we're gonna have some predictions. So let's dive right in, because we were kind of talking about Felix. So I figure, what a good place to start, because we had a lot of drama with him this episode.
Yes, Felix was getting way too ahead of himself. He was trying to make deals, and you see him as well, like, where was it? This one part where he was... Give me a second. Let me find it. Okay, where he was talking to his boys and talking about the problems, how to get the shipment going, and that's why I feel like the Sinaloa cartel ended up getting into a rivalry with the TJ cartel. But I don't know about Adina and Isabella too. I feel like they are gonna, because they're shying away from that, the men are, in such rivalry that now they're also venturing into the business of selling cocaine too.
Yeah.
So did you feel that was like the perfect plan at the moment, them teaming up, or what did you think about that one?
With Adina and
Isabella.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to call her Teresa Ruiz because that's her name.
Yeah.
Yes. But what do you think that they're gonna be a great team together? I don't know.
I think they might be the best team of anyone involved, but I do think that with them joining together, it's going to cause some major complications. And I think that I just feel like this whole story is just, from their point of view, every character is going to have a tragic end. Like, that's just how I feel when it comes to what we're leading up. I mean, we know in real life that most of these people either end up dead or in jail, or just, like it doesn't end well for anybody. So historically speaking, I think that's the biggest concern I have. And with Felix, we know what happens to the real Felix, but right now, what he doesn't know as he's making all of these plans is that he is going to end up being betrayed by Guerra.
Yes.
But before we get there, we have Felix, and he ends up. We have Felix kind of trying to deal with everything going on with Zuno. What did you make of that? And then kind of talking about Zuno too.
Zuno, when he got captured and he was interrogated, I felt like he wasn't going to talk, but he did end up giving like his uncle's name, which was like a good win for the DEA. I'm not sure if he's gonna mention Felix's name, or actually no, we see him not mentioning Felix's name and going back on his word.
So it was this weird situation, because it was Zuno, when he's actually being interrogated, he gives them everything they need. He gives them Felix. Then what I thought was amazing was that he gave another name, and they bleeped it. Like, as if we couldn't hear it. I was like, ooh, that's interesting storytelling.
Yes.
Very, like, hyper-realistic. So I appreciated that. But then we see Zuno get on stand, and he's like, nope, it was all me. Never met a Felix.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like Felix, all he has right now is just politicians on his side. Did you see at the beginning how he went to go visit Don Neto? And Don Neto was just super mad at him, and he just told him, like, you know what, we're just not going to. We will kill you, basically. We're not going to make deals with you anymore, and you're on your own. If you want to, get out of this, just turn yourself in. And I felt like that was necessary for him to, give him that verbal warning, because he betrayed them, and that was pretty messed up. Yeah.
And it is setting the tone, not just for Felix, but also for Zuno. Like, we know what the stakes are, and we know what everybody is kind of pressuring Felix to do too, because that isn't the only person who says, hey, you should turn yourself in. Later we have him talking to Matta, and I felt like even though it wasn't as direct, it was kind of a similar implication. What did you think of their conversation at the pool table?
At the pool table, I don't remember that part for some reason.
So it was it was Felix and Matta, and it was basically Matta bringing up the fact that, hey, Felix, like, you killed a DEA agent. You're going to be on their radar. There's really no getting out of this for you. And
from how it concluded, like at the end of the episode, I just felt like the conversations didn't matter that they had, because Felix is just going to backstab anybody. And I feel like Matta is, since he is helping, transport the drugs over, I definitely could tell that that was like a pawn that Felix just needed to throw out the game. So when he ended up tipping, the CIA to Matta, that was pretty like genius, not gonna lie, on Felix's part. But it's gonna cause so much, rivalry at this point, And
everybody, like, for Felix doing that, I mean, it's gonna be obvious, like, what he did. It's going to get out. And so Felix thinks that he's establishing this, partnership in a way, kind of. I mean, it's Felix. He doesn't really do partnerships, but he thinks that he's setting himself up so that he can be more powerful. But really, he's just shooting himself in the foot, because this is the big take I've gotten on this season so far, is that he has been trying to grow his coalition and really, grow his power. Yeah. And everybody's giving him pushback. Have you noticed that too?
Yes. Yeah. Everybody is just trying to. I think what it is that Felix gambles with their lives, and they don't want to take too much control where it's like out of control at that point, because every cartel wants different things, and Felix is just thinking for himself, and that's just I don't know, the egoism in him, like too much machismo is what we would call it. Yeah, but that's basically just having a big ego, a male ego. Yeah,
and it's like we're really seeing that. We see that when he gets on the plane. I mean, he's scared, and for a second I thought that the plane was going to take off too.
Yeah, me too. I thought they were going to just dump him in the U.S., but I mean, he had like the plan, to bring all the maps, and that was pretty like smart too. Like he's making great business, but at the same time, it's bad business. Yeah, it's like you could see it just like a snowball effect. Yeah,
and I mean, it's going to be dirty business in his line of work, but the fact that he would make a deal with a CIA agent who almost had a guy pull a trigger like to his head. So it's like, okay, this is probably not his smartest moment, Felix. But it's interesting because one of the most fascinating things about the show to me is how they bring in history. And I was a history major, so I love everything history. And the fact that they were talking about Nicaragua, and for anybody who isn't familiar, part of the involvement with part of the Iran-Contra policy with the Reagan administration had to do with Nicaragua. And I'm just going to read a little bit here, but basically there was an amendment with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua that basically was aimed at Nicaragua, where anti-communist Contras were battling the communist Sandinista government. And for anyone who's not familiar with history in the 80s, one of Reagan's big things was fighting against communism. And so that's kind of why, part of the reason we're here in Nicaragua and why we're seeing this American base. To me, it was just fascinating that we would see how how the drug trade and how Felix fits into this history.
Yeah, it evolved, and that's actually cool that you know so much about this. So we got a great history lesson. Yes. All right.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's especially funny when they like just watching how they portray things on the show too. Sometimes it's not always accurate. Well, a lot
and
of times,
dramatized.
and
but it was facts at that point.
yeah. And okay, so we talked about Felix. Let's talk a little bit more about everything that was going on with El Chapo.
Oh, I thought it was kind of cute how the idea started when he was making tortillas with his mom. I thought that was just like just a symbolism of a Hispanic male will always be too lovable with his mom, and that was cute. She gave him an idea pretty much too. She's like, oh, one day you'll build your own empire, and then you could see like the light bulb go on in his head. He was like, oh, I'm gonna build a tunnel. So yeah, how did you think about that part?
Okay, so my thing is, as I'm listening to the Spanish, the funniest moment is when she was saying that, like, the only other person you can rely on is Jesus Christ. But when she said it, the funny part to me was when she said Señor. Like, right? Did I hear that wrong?
Yeah. Señor Jesucristo.
Yeah. I was like, they call him Señor. Okay.
That is so cool that you caught that, because we've always called him Señor Jesucristo.
Yeah, because the translation just said Jesus Christ, but I'm like, Señor.
See, that's like the little Spanish little sayings that, like, if you catch that, that's kind of cool that you caught that, because we say, like, even like little things like they'll say botitas, like they add the itas or itos to the end, which just makes everything in Spanish just much funnier. But that's also showing how much they base off everything on religion, and they're so faithful. So I thought that was also cute.
Yeah, and I just loved the conversation with his mom in general, especially because what we know about this guy and how much violence he's associated with.
You wouldn't think, like, that he's this nice, like teddy bear,
like mama's boy.
Yeah, mama's boy,
who's sitting down for, I think it was he was actually helping her make whatever it was too.
Yeah, I think she might have been making like tamales or something. It looked like, because of the process that they had, it looked like they were making tamales. Like he was like using, I forgot the word for that one too, and I'm like Mexican, but that's the thing that you make tortillas in. I'm sure all the Latinos will understand.
Yeah.
Right.
But I loved that scene. She kind of helped him have his light bulb moment, and then I think that before he even directly told us what he was going to do, then we get the scene where he's just looking at the house. And I loved this, like, the exchange that he had.
The house to the one across the border warehouse.
And how easy, like, I've never been to Mexico. And so I didn't realize that you could literally just look right across and you could be in Mexico, and then there's a house, and there's no, like, it's just, that easy to...
Yeah. So when I've gone a couple times, I've gone to actually all the, like, cartel cities. I've gone to Ciudad Juarez, and the border there is pretty much... just like a plain metal like thing over, but also the Rio is there, so that's kind of what helps with the border. But the one in TJ also just like a wall, like you could even see through. It's like kind of like a fence, and there's like houses on the other side. So then when he thought about the idea of having the house, buying the house there to build a tunnel underneath, I was like, wow, that's genius, because there's so many houses that he could choose, like just in case that one doesn't work out, like, oh, here is like my evil mind working right now. But I think that's just what's brilliant about like just seeing the rise of his kingdom.
Well, and it was funny because he gets this idea, and then most people would say, let's plan it out, let's take some time. Nope, they are like, let's start right now,
and they have the money to do that, so that's what's crazy. But this did upset the TJ cartel. So I just, that's just too messy just to see all them, going against each other, guns out and everything.
Now, do you think, now here's the thing, obviously this all started because of the tax, which started because there was an issue between the two families. Do you think that Felix could have handled this in a better way to prevent it from getting to this point where someone's building a tunnel
Yeah, he could have not taxed, the other cartel. I'm not sure, though, what would have been the best solution because at this point, all of them are going against each other and there's no way to please everybody, you know? So I don't know. Honestly, I would not know what to do if I was Felix, but probably try to be less stingy and try to get their just money correct.
Yeah, and the thing is that we know that this doesn't with just Ramon, for example. In real life, it ends with him getting shot by a Sinaloan. So we know that this tension does not fade, and there was really we saw how badly they were fighting. It doesn't end, and so it is hard for someone like Felix. But I think that's part of the problem. One of the things that had been, they'd been warning him against was when you bring certain families together, it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, and it all reminded me of when they said if you want to, destroy the empire, you have to divide it first. So that's you could see it just dividing and tearing apart slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we move on to our segments, the other thing that we really didn't touch on yet was with Breslin, because we got a flashback with him in Houston. Finding out that his brother had died, and then it was related to the drug lords.
Yes, I was not able to see correctly, but did you catch that there was I think it was a bag of cocaine next to him on the seat?
Yeah.
So I didn't understand, did he die off, an overdose or because he got shot doing a drug trade?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I didn't see blood as if he had been shot, but it went by so fast that I wasn't 100% sure if it was more because he had overdosed or maybe he had been doing the drugs and got into a car accident. I couldn't really tell other than the fact that they made it a point to zoom in on the drugs.
Yeah.
So what I assumed is that Walt blames the drug lords for making it possible for somebody to get the cocaine.
That's the same thing I assumed. I'm I think that's why he's going after this as a revenge, plot, because he feels as if the brother only died because had the cartel never provided this drug, he would have still been alive. But I don't know. I like that you can also touch base on that's the consumer's fault too. Not to sound mean, but there's a problem with the drug epidemic, and we should just think, about doing stuff before we actually do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it definitely relates to what we're going through now too with the opiate epidemic, where we're trying to crack down on the distributors and on people, distributing it illegally and legally because of how addicting the drug is. And so to me it's we're watching this show about cocaine, but the reality is this could be any drug. This absolutely relates to what we're going through. And so I felt Walt's pain. I felt even worse for him when he went to visit I guess his sister-in-law to see the son, and she didn't really want him there. It was so
you
awkward.
could tell she's dwelling with the loss of her husband technically. Yeah, it was just sad for her to just see him come in almost every day of the week. It's a little too much. And I think what I also caught with this is that he's overstepping his boundaries a little with that, but as well as with his DEA agents. He's trying to seek the most, but I feel when you go too far, you never know what you're gonna find. So I feel sorry for Breslin having to go through all this, but he does need to take it slow, because if he goes a little too fast, I don't know what might happen.
Yeah. And the thing is that we've only seen this now, so we don't know how he's been acting before.
No,
we don't. I've always gotten the sense that he comes and goes. And so I almost wonder if that's more of why she was concerned, because she doesn't want to have I think she wants to just get past, her husband's death. And I think she wants to just move on, which is what she told Walt. But I also get the sense that she doesn't want somebody just coming in every so often and then leaving and then coming in, because she doesn't want,
And since he is doing such a, very brave job, he can die any moment. And I think she's afraid to have to go through heartbreak too.
Yeah. Not to mention just seeing Walt probably brings up really hard memories for her, but she does say in the end that her son would be happy to see him. So at least, and I loved how she worded that too. It wasn't that would like he was asking for permission, and she literally said, "Yes, my son would be okay with this."
Yeah, and that's cute that he's bonding with him, at least to have like a male figure there.
Yeah, and the son didn't seem to want him around either, though.
He was just like nonchalant about it too.
Yeah, he seemed very like, oh, okay, like he was giving him lip, but I mean that could just be that he's a young kid going through loss too.
That's true. Yeah. So shout out to Agent Breslin. He's so nice for doing that. Though.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully that will, hopefully his nephew will be a little more open to him being in his life. Because obviously Walt's grieving too, and that's an easier way for him to go through the process. Of course. Yeah. So with the time that we have left, let's get into our real life Narcos segment. That is cool music. So we decided we wanted to highlight El Chapo. Joaquin, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Laura? Joaquin.
Yes.
Laura? Yeah.
Yes.
So he was, obviously these are real people. The thing that we wanted to highlight was that in 2015, we got to see a real life tunnel from him. And that was when he built a tunnel from his jail cell. He built it through the actual sewage of his toilet, and he escaped. And there's actual video footage of it. So if you want to go on YouTube and just Google this guy and Google his real tunnel, it's all over the web. It's pretty hilarious. Like the way that they announced it was, you're not. If you blink, you're not gonna see it.
It was so fast too. Just I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. And in real life, El Chapo did actually build a tunnel, not just from his jail cell, but he built one similar to the one that we see on Narcos, but it was in 1989. So, as we know, this show is not 100% accurate. A lot of things have been taken have been kind of reworked for creative liberty, but there was a real tunnel, and El Chapo did build the actual tunnel that we're seeing now in the show. And I believe he was also in the news recently too, and we had mentioned it a couple episodes ago. So I won't get into that because you probably already watched it and don't want to hear us get into this again. But now is a good time for our predictions.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Liz, what are your predictions for the next
So for the next episode, since Matta did get captured, I feel like Felix is going to try to, move some, moves around. I think he's going to somehow try to get into that position of providing and shipping more narcotics across the states. I think also with Matta being gone, there might be or Felix might actually snitch on more people.
Yeah.
Because that's what he's good at so far, throwing people away and stabbing people behind their back.
Yeah. We didn't get to touch on him too much, but Calderani, the guy who, no one really wants to deal with him, I think that he is going to present a problem. I think that I think that they're going to trust him, and it's going to be the wrong move on the DEA side.
Okay.
I also think that this tunnel is going to present a huge issue for everybody. It's going to increase tensions between the Sinaloans and between the Felix family, number one, but then also I just think that this might be the trigger that really, takes what Felix has tried to build and just kind of it's going to be the bomb that kicks everything off. So
that's a good prediction.
Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it there because we were gonna be back in a couple minutes to talk about the next episode. But until then, Liz, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at California on Instagram. So catch me there.
And you can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman or on my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author. Until next time, we will talk to you later, but be sure to catch the next episode we discuss, episode 5, very shortly. Bye, everybody.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.